Meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Nice to meet you.
I,
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
I see
Good afternoon.
some known and some unknown faces, so that's great. Fantastic. And from so many countries. We're expecting a whole lot more, but I'm just going to slowly. I think you're from all over the world, so this is Belinda, where are you from?
Austin, Texas.
Oh my gosh,
Oh,
I live there. How
Oh,
is
really?
I did. Where the breakfasts are bigger than my dinners.
I know.
Okay, people are slowly coming as well.
And where are you from?
Marika, are you in Finland?
Yes,
Oh,
born in Sweden, but live in Helsinki, Finland.
oh, that's great. Good to see you. So what I would ask all of you is to turn on your cameras, please. So we know that we're actually dealing with real human beings. Thank you very much. Hi, Kathleen Molo. Hi.
hi. Hi, nice to see you.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
This is like memory lane. So there's some people I know and some people I don't. Welcome everybody in this case. So my name is Sari van Poelje. I am the director of Intact Academy. We give EMCC senior coach training, both for executive coaching and for team coaching and for supervision. This is my 40th anniversary. I can't believe it. I've done this since I was 12, obviously. This is a year of celebration for me, and you are part of my celebration because I love to share our craft, and I really think it's an art and a science. So welcome here. So for those of you who just, thank you. For those of you who just arrived, please turn on your video cameras so that we can see you. We love to see real people and not just AI copies of people. That's great. So, hi Manfred, you're smiling. You are a real person.
Yes, I am a real person. I'm not AI generated.
Oh, that's fantastic. I'm glad to see.
I'm from South Africa.
Oh, very welcome here. We've got someone else from South Africa as well. Hi, Clive. Good to see you.
Hi.
So today, I really share some of my thinking about meaningful chaos in teams, because a lot of the time I get clients who say, "Oh, I wish my team was calmer. I wish people would actually cooperate. I hope they do what I say, and that everything like a calm pond in the landscape." But my sense really, and this is why I'm giving the workshop, is that to create innovation, you need agitation. And all these managers who go, "Oh no, I wish it was calm," I'm going, yeah, that's fine if you want to create, standard operating procedures and the market is very calm and your product is clear. Sure, go for the calmness. But if you want to create anything in terms of process improvement or innovation, I wish you agitation. So that's where it comes from. For those of you who don't know me, I have also been a director in multinationals for 23 years. I'm a master coach and a master team coach. And team coaching is really my life. Started, as many of you, I'm sure, with individual coaching. Then I used to coach executives, and then every fourth or fifth session, they'd say, "By the way, my marriage is also very bad." And then I'd have to spend time on that. And then they'd say, oh, I've changed completely, but my team hasn't changed, so I'm leaving. And I was going, well, I really want to have systemic effect, so I switched from individual to team coaching. And that's what I do because I really believe that we're losing the capacity to team in the world. We're more and more focused also with all the political, environmental developments we have at the moment. People are more and more focused on a kind of very old-fashioned Darwinism, the right of the strongest, instead of the idea of interdependence. And with the loss of interdependence in our world, we're also losing the capacity to team. Do you understand what I'm saying? Yeah. That's why I dedicate my life to teaming. This is the real reason I do it. So before I continue with this, so who is actually doing coaching? Who is a team coach? Fantastic. Ellen, jij klinkt alsof je van Nederland komt. You sound as if you're from Holland.
Yes, I'm in the Netherlands, correct.
Fantastic. And we don't even know each other.
Oh, well, this is where we get to know each other.
It's great. I'm
Awesome.
glad. So I'm a little bit of a nerd, so I'm going to take you into my world. If I go too fast or too slow, please interrupt me. I love getting questions, so I hope that this becomes an interactive session. So feel free to ask anything you want to. You can write it in the chat as well. I don't know if I can read at the same time, but I'll do my best to react. But by all means, interrupt me, because those are the most inspiring moments I find often. So those of you who have just joined, please turn on your cameras so that we can see you. We love to see you. Hi, Gabriella. So I will share some of my thinking so far and ask you questions in between. Is that all right? Yep. Ready to rock? Ready to rock. Here we go. So this is me. I've just said some stuff about me. Just for you, you will get these slides. If you write me an email, you'll get them. So please do not photograph this. Please don't copy them. You will get them if you ask for them, but then we're sure it goes the right way. So my starting point in this whole thinking about meaningful chaos is that we have systems where we have boundaries, and boundaries really demarcate teams. So you have an inside and an outside, and we hopefully know who's in and who's out. But the trick is, if you close those boundaries too much, a system dies. But if you open them too much, the system implodes or disappears. So you need enough exchange with the environment and with other teams in the system to agitate a little and to create innovation in this. So in this workshop, I really want to explore that idea of what are boundaries? How much do you have to open? How much do you have to close? And also, what kind of competencies do we need to teach organizations to maintain a cohesion to deal with the agitation? Okay, is this making sense so far? Yep. If you nod, one person nods, I'll take you as a representative of the group. So I work a lot within transactional analysis, and within TA we say that a group consists of really an aggregation of people who are bound through a major external boundary and a major internal boundary. The major external boundary, I'm teaching you the ABCs, the major external boundary really makes the difference between outside and inside. That can be something that's physical. For instance, you're here in this Zoom, and the fact that you have a code leadership and membership. In this case, I'm the one who's talking and who has control over the buttons. So that's kind of the physical demarcation of the fact that I'm within the major internal boundary. Eric Byrne, the founder of TA, was very clear. He said, if you don't have boundaries, you don't actually have a group. And to create this, you need to be clear about who's in and who's out and who's in the leadership. There's a whole discussion to be had about distributed leadership, but we can have it at some point if you're interested in that. So basically, we say there are, I'm just giving you the information, so there are different boundaries according to Byrne. If you look at this boundary we call the major external boundary. This is the difference between in and out. And strangely enough, often when I team coach, when I ask leaders who's in your team and who's outside of your team, that's already a difficult question for them. So that's interesting. But we say within TA, you know, if you're not clear about who's in and or who's out, really you're not functioning as a group very well. We talk about this major internal boundary, which is leadership membership. And again, when people call me for team coaching, often there's a problem with who is actually leading and who's not. I had one, my students know this, but I had one team where I asked the CEO, okay, you want me to do team coaching, who's actually in the team, the leadership team? And he said, this, you know, product development, marketing, my secretary. And I said, what do you mean your secretary? And he said, yeah, she's the one who replaces me when I'm on vacation. And I thought, no wonder there are fights in this team about who's in power. We also talk about minor internal boundaries, which demarcate the difference between categories in the team, like subgroups in the team. That really depends on where the problem is. Sometimes I see in team coaching, there's a big problem between people who have just joined and people who have been there for a longer time. Sometimes between men and women. I worked for a while in the professional fire brigades. There, the difference was really between men and women. There was a huge problem there in Holland. Timea is going like that, so I guess they haven't solved it in Hungary either. So this is, when you have these boundaries in place, we call it a group. Okay. Am I clear so far? Yeah. I'm explaining this because we're going to talk about what happens in terms of dynamics if the boundaries aren't clear. So that's where I'm going with this. Okay. So the first question for you is, if you would draw your own team, the team you're in, or a team you're working with these boundaries, please just take a minute of your time to draw the team you're in or a team you're working with. What is the major external boundary? Who's in and who's out? What is the major internal boundary? Who's in the leadership and who not? Agatha, this is actually a pen and paper exercise, so yeah. Hi, Christina. And then if you can, draw some of the subcategories in your group. If you've just joined, please turn on your camera so we know you are there and that you're not an AI person. That would be great. Thank you very much. Oh, how are you doing with that, Inga? Kasi Leoniene. I don't know how to pronounce your name. Did that work for you, the drawing?
Well, I just I have drawn two circles, just like it was in your.
And do you know who's a member and who's a leader in your group?
Yeah, it got me
Like this,
thinking.
that's I'm not sure.
It got me thinking.
Yeah. Yeah, usually when even this isn't clear, the chances that your group is effective isn't very high either. So it's good you're thinking. We like thinking.
No, that's not an easy question that you asked. No, not always clear.
This is the start, Inga. So, any questions about this exercise so far? Is it clear what I'm asking? Yes, no, to me. Yeah, okay.
Quick
Ellen.
question, Sari. So when you talk about the minor boundaries, you spoke about gender. Could it also be an age difference where you
Yes.
have a couple people from a certain
Yes.
generation and a couple from another?
Yes,
Or
absolutely.
could it be, you have leaders from departments and you have large departments and smaller departments, and that
Yes.
can also sort of create a boundary. Okay.
Absolutely. Most people say it's the boundaries between departments, but that's a bit of a fixed idea.
No, this is more the large and small.
Yeah, usually as a team coach, I look at where are the boundaries that cause problems in the team.
Okay.
What I'm focused on as a team coach. Yeah. Okay, so now we have an idea. This is a group needs boundaries, and there are different types of boundaries. Let's see if I can take you further into this journey. So, yeah, this is a bit, do I really want to say this? We say that you can describe boundaries according to how open or closed they are and how complex they are. So I'll make a long story short. As a team coach, my objective in teams is usually to create a structure that is as simple as possible. So the less boundaries, the better, because every time there is a boundary in a group, you lose energy, information, communication power, influence. Any boundary you have to cross, you lose about 20%. So I try to make structures as simple as possible. And often I come as a team coach in organizations where they make it really, really complex. And I tell people, listen, folks, you can make a really complex structure, but every structure solves one problem and causes the next problem. So there isn't really an ideal structure. You have to make it as simple as possible. Does that make sense to people? Maya is nodding, so I'm guessing that makes sense to you. And I also try to create a structure within teams where you are open enough to let things in, but closed enough to maintain your identity. And I want to explain something about that, because it's important as a team leader and as a team coach that you know this kind of stuff, I find. So here you see my idea about boundary paradoxes, about openness and closeness. So often I've developed this because often the team leaders that I work with say to me, yeah, I want to maintain complete control, but I want to delegate power. And I'm going, okay. And then they say, I want to be completely reactive to the market, but we have to maintain a very clear identity. I go, okay. And then, they say, yeah, I want to have, separate KPIs for each unit in the team. But on the other hand, I really want them to work together. And I keep telling my team leaders when I coach them, look, you can do one, but not the other, but you can't do both. You can do one or the other, but you can't do both maximum. And I'll explain that. And it's important because if you deviate from that, it creates dysfunctional chaos. That's why I'm explaining this. Okay. With me so far? Yeah. I'm a bit of a nerd. So, if you don't get it, ask me a question. If you do get it and want to add to it, also raise your hand, because I really want to hear you as well. So The first thing I explain to team leaders is there's paradox number one on this major external boundary. You could open that boundary completely. For instance, we could say, even if you don't have the link to the Zoom, the whole world can get in. And we'd open the boundary and we'd be completely reactive to the market. Yeah. And that has its benefits because you get lots of information and you get lots of stimulus as well. But if you open all the boundaries completely, just think about you take away all the walls of your house, then you lose your identity because you let everything in, but then everything can go out as well. Does that make sense to you, Elma? Yeah. So what I teach my team leaders is if you want to create meaningful chaos, you have to make sure that your permeability of your boundaries are correct. You can't open completely. You can't close completely, because if you close completely, you get a great corporate identity, but you die, because without external stimulus, any team and any system will die. So the first thing I teach them is you have to find the right balance between open and closed to the market to deliver your purpose. If your purpose is innovation, you need to be a bit more open to the market, and you have to accept that you lose a bit of identity. If your purpose is volume operational excellence, you close a bit to the market. You have to accept that you won't get as much stimulus for innovation. Does that make sense? Boundaries are like the skin of a team. It has to breathe depending on what you want to do with it. Okay. The second paradox, if you don't manage it well, you go into dysfunctional chaos, is on the major internal boundary between leaders and members. And here we say, if you open that boundary completely, you give the leadership down to the membership, you delegate control. And if you close that boundary completely, you centralize control, and there's really one, usually autocratic leader. It's what we're seeing a lot now, obviously. But you cannot maximize delegation and control at the same time. You can't be in completely control and say my members have leadership as well. This is one of the most difficult things for leaders to take, because they actually want both at the same time. Yeah, it's very hard for a team leader to say, okay, I'll give up some control so other people can take initiative. The most prevalent complaint of leaders who ask for team coaching with me is, I want them to take initiative, but I want to have control at the same time. Obviously, if you keep control, people don't take initiative usually. So meaningful chaos means that you get that balance right. You have to decentralize control, but also keep it. And I often teach team leaders to create meaningful chaos. You have to take control over what people do, and you delegate how people do it. And that way you can find that balance. Does that make sense? Maria, you're writing it down? That makes sense. Okay, great. Okay. The third thing to make sure you don't move into meaningless or dysfunctional chaos is this third paradox between units or between departments. In traditional organizations, people keep a spoken wheel, we say siloed organizations, because it's one of the ways to keep control. But on the other hand, really, the only way to innovate is to have cross-functional cooperation. Innovation is always at the edge, between disciplines, between units, between the outside and the inside. So the only way to create meaningful chaos is to increase the interdependence between the units. And I don't say that lightly. So at the moment, we often work in organizations where these people are split into silos and they always complain about it. But on the other hand, they don't want people to work together too much or they lose control. So, you know, again, you have to find a balance to create meaningful chaos instead of meaningless chaos. And we can talk a little bit about that. Interdependence in the world today is a lost cause, it seems like, at the moment. So it is really important for us to understand that. So interdependence to me means that you accept that if I lose, you lose. If I win, you win. I need you to do my own stuff. The main question to create interdependence is what can we do together that we can't do alone? And unfortunately, I think we're losing a lot of that in the world today. But as team coaches, it is one of the central questions. So interdependence is very difficult for people, certainly nowadays. The trends are against us. But we really can do more together than we can do alone. And in teams, it's one of the central things I teach people. Yeah. Okay. So one of the things around meaningful chaos is we have boundaries in groups. To move from meaningless to meaningful chaos, you have to get the balances between these paradoxes correct, right? Okay. That's the message I'm giving you. So let's see if there's any questions about this or any comments. I really want to hear you, so please unmute yourselves and let me hear you. Manfred.
I have a question. Yeah.
Yes, please.
Hi, Sari.
Hi.
That paradox too,
Yep.
between control and delegation.
Yeah.
I've been part of teams where the leader wants to delegate or is delegating some responsibilities to the team, but some team members feel that he's not leading.
Yes.
So how do you coach
a
leader in that situation where he's more of a delegator, but some team members are saying we want more leadership given?
Yeah. I think a leader is always responsible for setting the purpose and the direction, for the what, and for the structure. In what structure do we work in? We have a saying in Holland, every river without banks becomes a puddle. So the leaders are responsible for setting the direction of the river and for creating the river banks. And if you do that really well, and we'll talk about contracting competencies for that, Manfred. If you do that really well, you give a lot of leadership to your team. But then you let the river flow, you know. The members are responsible for creating that. How do we work together to get this purpose realized? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I think leaders are much too soft on that. I was a director of multinationals for 23 years, and I used to tell people it's not it's not magic. Usually leadership is just a question of repetition. We don't tell people that, but if you repeat the purpose of a team often enough, finally people get it, and then they start doing it. But you need to repeat often. You set the direction, you set the structure. And that structure has to be open and closed enough. It has to be delegating and controlling enough. It has to be independent and interdependent enough to fulfill what they have to do. you know, the river banks, that's what we were talking about when we were talking about boundaries. Okay. Okay so far? Otherwise, just join the program. Just join the program conference. That's a different issue. Ellen, go for it.
So I had a question around the structure versus you said, and we let the team figure out how to do the work together. So I get the what, the purpose, direction, but then structure, what is it that the leader then can set? And you gave the examples of delegate, control, but I can't quite wrap my head around it. So what's an example of a leader giving structure there? I decide on X and we decide together on other things. What's an example of structure?
Yeah, structure is where do you put the boundaries?
Okay.
It's how do you take decisions, decision-making processes?
Okay. Yeah, I thought so.
Clarity of roles.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Got it. Thanks.
To be truthful, those three things together determine the distribution of power, really, in a team. It's a center of power. Yeah. Okay. I don't know. I'm a bit nerdy today, just talking about my world. Is this still interesting to you guys? Anita, still there? Yeah. Okay, cool. 31. Okay. So I'm going to put you into subgroups. So then we immediately know who's in and who's out. And I want you to, someone immediately leaves. That's funny. I'd like you to have a little talk about how open or closed is the structure in your team, the team you're working in. Okay? So it's a very short discussion. I'll bring you back in about, I don't know, 8 minutes, something like that. How open or closed? Just have a discussion about that. And what kind of effect does that have on your work? So please join the groups. I'll bring you back very quickly, so it's just a chance to exchange. Can you see the breakout rooms? Oh, that's really weird. I've made it. Oh, okay. Here you go. Hey, Sudip. Bye-bye. Hey, please go to your rooms. If you're not in the rooms, I'll exit you. Good to see you again.
We could not finish.
I'm sure. I'm sure, but I hope it stimulates you to have
Yeah, it was
more
absolutely.
talks about this. That would be great. So let me hear some of the stuff that you were discussing. Anyone? Julia, of course.
Hi, even me.
Is that
You know, we didn't have much time to discuss. We were trying to introduce each other a little bit, and then we just started talking, and then it was interrupted. It was not much discussion.
I have to give you more time. Sorry about that, Julia. But at least you got to meet some people.
Yes, absolutely. No, it was good.
Maybe some thoughts that have come up. Jane, Hemingway, what are you thinking so far?
I was just kind of, so I'd put our HR team with like business partners and HR officers as kind of an internal boundary. And I just wanted to check that's quite right, the kind of minor boundary, would that be?
Yeah,
when we're working in teams, there's a bit of a structure there. So I guess that then becomes one of these minor internal boundaries. Is that right?
Yeah, so you have HR business partners and?
HR officers.
What's the difference?
Training and the sort of workload that they take on, the level of knowledge that they have.
Yeah, and you probably have an admin group as well?
Yeah, admin, and then there's me that sort of coaches as well. So I've got kind of a standalone role. So I guess that's got an internal boundary around it as well.
Yeah, and
is that right? Have I interpreted it correctly?
Yeah, and you have one leader.
Yeah, who doesn't lead, which is interesting. Coming out of this, like that paradox 2, I think it was. You know, really just delegates everything, and we get on with it.
Yeah, the problem is that then everyone makes their own meaning.
Yeah, it's really eye-opening to see it and map it out like this.
Yeah, so you've got coach, business partner, business officers, and admin, which we call apparatus. It's staff, so they have a delegated role from the leadership. If you have a vacancy in the leadership, what happens is that all of those elements start to lead themselves, and then you get an increase in internal competition usually.
So what happened actually conversely was that we all got together, decided what the direction and approach was, created the people strategy and launched it.
So you X'd your leader.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, she kind of like, adopted it, changed a few words, but we wrote the content and pulled it together, which was really interesting because I've never seen that happen in a team where actually we don't feel threatened by each other and we do work really well together. So it's really interesting. Rare, I think.
Strong informal leaders, I'm guessing.
Yeah, they're a good team.
And a predominance of women.
No, yes, one chap. Yeah, out of 5.
That's interesting, isn't it? I was just watching a documentary about Iceland and their government structure now. That's they have a female prime minister and a female finance minister, and they were doing a research on the differences in leadership style. Very interesting. Anyway, I'm biased, as you know. Okay, so is it a very mature team?
Yes.
Yeah, that helps. So then the level of delegation can be higher, as long as the direction is clear and the structure is clear. Yeah,
it was interesting having to write your own direction, really. So it's worked, but only because we are all competent in our roles and we all have different areas of speciality.
Oh, congratulations, it's fantastic. The only thing I would add to that, but that's I'll challenge you for this, is that you choose one metric for your direction every 6 months. So because one of the things that creates meaningless chaos in teams is that every unit is managing themselves to a different metric. I'll explain. And then you create dysfunctional chaos in teams. So what I mean is often we have there are many different kinds, but we have 4 different kinds of metrics. In HR, you have your financial metrics, margins, you have customer satisfaction, employee satisfaction, employee joy, let's call it joy, employee joy. And then you've got innovation rate. Okay, let's say that you've got 4 types of metrics, but anytime you focus on one metric, the other metric goes down. And usually in teams, they say we're going to focus on everything at the same time, and it creates dysfunctional chaos. I'll give an example. Whenever your innovation rate goes up, you introduce new processes in HR, your customer satisfaction goes down. It's a given. Yeah. As soon as you want to invest in employee satisfaction, your margins go down. Yeah, but every team always tells me we want to do everything at the same time. So my challenge to you, Jane, is let's see if you can get everyone on board to choose one metric for the coming 6 months. And
Thank you, Sari.
See if you can tighten that cohesion even more.
Lovely. Good idea. Thank you.
Yeah. Cool. Anything else, people? What came out? Are you interested in? Hello, hello, hello.
Yeah, there was a great insight that who was I speaking to? Gabriela. When she talked about open and closed, I didn't quite get the question. And then I looked at my team and I noticed they are so close to external influence. They have an external consultant working with them on their cost efficiency. And there's so much resistance. And I just got this metaphor in my head of the skin needs some punctures in it for them to breathe or to, and she said something about learner mindset. I'm like, oh my gosh, they're so fixed at this point that there's no space for growth and it needs to come through the skin. So I might use something like a metaphor like that and see what happens when I bring that in the room. So thank you for that, for my colleague on the discussion. That was awesome.
Cool banana, Gabriella. Yeah, it's true. You know, often one of the questions I ask as a team coach is, how often do you, I have to say, 95% of my clients are men. They're all leadership teams and most of them are engineers. So, you know, this is just to give you a context of what I work with. So, and engineers are often very convinced that they know what's best for their client. So whenever we talk about innovation, they go, but we know what they need. And then one of the things about boundaries, because you said, and what can I picture? What is the concrete translation of that? So for the permeability of the external boundary, I ask people, how often do you go to conferences to actually listen to other people? You know, how much contact do you have with other companies that do the same thing, but differently? You know, this is also a measure of, do people actually go outside and bring new information in? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, cool. And often they say never. Yeah, I was working for one agricultural machinery, and Maya knows this. So, and it was all engineers. It was actually the engineering, the R&D department. And I said, so what's in your pipeline for innovation? And they said, well, you know, we're trying to create a seat in the tractors that not only moves like this, but also moves like this. I went, is that your major achievement in your innovation this year? And they said, yeah, I think that's best for our customers. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but this is just about how the conversation went. And I said, well, have you asked your customers, you know, what they're looking for? No. And I said, so let's create some customer labs. This is also ways to create permeability, Ellen. I asked, so let's organize some customer labs and ask the customers, what is your biggest problem with the tractor today? And so the farmers came in and they said, well, you know, every time we're at the end of the field, we have to decouple the combine harvester. For those of you, does anyone have an agricultural background here? You know what a combine harvester is? Yeah, it's 12 meters long. It takes the grain off the field. So they said, our biggest problem is we get to the end of the field, we have to decouple, turn around the tractor and recouple the combine harvester. So if this company would create an innovation where we can actually turn the machine around, they would be #1 in the market. So I said to my engineers, so maybe if we organize these customer labs a bit more and create a bit more permeability in this, maybe your customer satisfaction would go up. So that's what they've been doing since then, which is great. Yeah. I'm telling you these stories to give you some anecdotes about what I do. Pepe, does that help you?
Yeah, thank you. You know, you're talking about the permeability and the group. Does the group go out to the external conferences? What if the members don't, but the leader does? Is it still considered
If the leader goes out, but the
open?
members never go out? Is that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What would you consider it as? Is it more closed or open, or is it permeable enough?
I think in terms of the major external boundary, there is some permeability, but to me, the leader keeps control. Because if you encourage your members to go out, go forth and multiply, as it were, and come back with the harvest, as it were, then you create a much more delegating style of leadership. So in terms of paradox 2, they're probably still stuck in centralized control. And that's fine if it is a business that doesn't have to innovate. I'm not saying one is better than the other. The more you have to innovate, the more permeable your boundary has to be. Yeah.
And one last question about, does the concept of the open and closeness apply only to the major or external boundary, or is it applicable for all the various?
To all the boundaries.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, and it's like I sometimes say to leaders, it's you have to think, what is the purpose of this team? What is the structure? What permeability and complexity in structure do we need to be able to fulfill that purpose? That's the question. There is no best structure. Sometimes you have to open, sometimes you have to close. In crisis, it's normal that organizations close for a while, but then they have to open again. When we had COVID, what you saw is an immediate reaction to close, but what they hadn't thought about is how do we open again? Because if you keep it closed all the time, a society dies. And a lot of our young people here in Holland have the consequences of that. I don't know how it is in your countries, but yes. So, okay, cool. Hi, Nathalie Navarro from France. Glad to see you. So we've talked a little bit about boundaries, and really the rule of thumb is keep your structure as set the purpose, the direction, keep your structure as simple as possible, and make sure that you have that balance between open and closed in all those boundaries to fulfill your purpose. If you do that, you move from dysfunctional chaos to meaningful chaos. That's the message so far. Yeah? Okay. Are you ready for the next bit of this? And I'm just taking you into my world, so please invite me back into your world if you have questions. So the second bit I want to talk about is really dynamics and cohesion and the competencies you need to keep cohesion. So let me see if I can do this really simply. So any organization, any team is dynamic, really. So there's always a flow of people and information and materials across the boundaries. And any activity in an organization is always boundary spanning. You always go across boundaries for cross-functional cooperation to get things done in an organization. Anytime you create a boundary, you get dynamics. So if there's a, if a metaphor, when you fall in love, has anyone ever fallen in love with somebody else? Anyone? Yes, France, of course. Very good. Well, when you fall in love with someone, then, all boundaries disappear and you feel, when you're young at least, you feel as if you're one. And kind of all the demarcations kind of melt away. And of course, we always fall in love between hope and fear, between the hope that this time it will be different and the fear that this time it will be the same as before. But okay, let's park that for a moment. At a certain moment, if people are completely in love, it's all pheromones and hormones and whatnot. It takes a year or 1.5 years. You wake up and you go, oh, but I'm still me and the other person is still them. And you start to figure out that actually together you're in a couple and you are also separate people. So there's a demarcation. And usually at that point, when people realize there is a boundary between you and me, that it's very quick if you're older, it's very long if you're younger. But at that moment, the dynamics start. The old dynamics start usually in a couple. I'm saying this very simply, so forgive me for that. It's the same in a team. You start a team. It's like paradise found. Maya and I have just had a long talk about the. So you come together. Yes, and, oh, paradise found. No demarcation between us. The boundary between outside and inside is very flexible. Between you is very flexible. And suddenly you realize that actually you're very different people and that there are boundaries between you. Mm-hmm. As it should be, because that's healthy. It's healthy to know that. Now, the thing is, we talk, as soon as there's a boundary, there's dynamics. That's a given. And we talk within my world about 3 types of dynamics, and I just want to take you with me in that, if you can still follow me. We say there are red dynamics in every team and green dynamics. For simplicity's sake, when there's pressure on the major external boundary, so from outside in, we call that pressure. For instance, financial crisis or COVID or a war, or we call that pressure. Okay, it's a red dynamic. If there is pressure on the leadership boundary, for instance, an informal leader tries to take over the leadership, or the leader internally is not present, like in Jane's case, and so other people can just enter the leadership sphere, we call that agitation. I'm just teaching you the ABCs. You can forget immediately if you want to. And if there's dynamics between members, so gossip or oh, production is horrible, no, sales are horrible, no, we call that intrigue, okay? It's just ABCs. So pressure from the outside, agitation across the leadership boundary, and intrigue between the members. Now, there is always a certain amount of pressure, agitation, and intrigue in every team. If there weren't any of those dynamics, they would probably be dead. So, there's always a certain amount of dynamics in every team. The thing is, and this is a formula, if the cohesion in the team doesn't match the level of agitation, intrigue, and pressure, then you fall back into dysfunctional chaos. This is like a mathematical formula, so I'll repeat. So your cohesion within the team has to be as high as the pressure, intrigue, and agitation, or else you fall back into meaningless chaos. Does that make sense to anyone? Okay, so for instance, Jane, let's say your leader is absent and nobody would be cohesive within the team. They just let it fall apart. The team would probably have fallen apart.
Yeah.
But you were very lucky because there was enough cohesion within the team membership to actually hold that leadership in place. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. But if this agitation from your leader, and in my world, her absence is called agitation, Jane. If this agitation from your leader had been stronger than the cohesion of the membership, then probably your team would have disintegrated. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. So let's take COVID. Pressure of COVID on our world. If people would not have pulled together cohesively to reply to that threat, I'm using COVID. I could use much more recent examples, but I'll use COVID for now to stay out of politics. But if we would not have pulled together to react to the pandemic, then probably society would have imploded. Does that make sense? Do you understand what I'm saying? Yeah. Okay. So the fourth point, moving from dysfunctional chaos to meaningful chaos, is as a team leader, or in our case, as team coach, we have to teach people how to make their cohesion as high as their dynamics. It sounds a bit abstract, but I hope you know what I mean. So pressure is anything that pushes into the team. Agitation is anything between the leaders and the members. And intrigue is anything between the members. I often get requests for team coaching and the leader says, I'm the only one who takes action here. The members never take initiative. It's a form of, and then they start to micromanage. Micromanagement is a form of agitation in my world. Okay. And if there's not enough cohesion within the membership to deal with that, to actually say to the leader, go back to where you belong, then you see that there is more and more passivity in the team. Does that make sense to you? You probably recognize this. Yeah. If in a team there is a lot of gossip about each other and a lot of game playing, we say in transactional analysis, and it's not met by a feeling of belonging together, then the team will also fall apart. Dysfunctional chaos. Yeah. Yeah. So the question for you is, if you see these different types of dynamics, how big are the red dynamics? Pressure, agitation, intrigue. If you draw the arrows in your team. And how big is the cohesion, the green dynamic that has to balance it? Just take a minute to complete your drawing of these dynamics. We'll have a little talk. We have devolution, Jane. Good recipe for a toxic environment, yes. Absolutely. How gossip should be addressed. Thank you, Julia. We'll talk about it. We have. You still with us, Chris? Yes. Good. I'm trying to give you a language to to understand these things. So that's my point. If you have a language, then it's easier to recognize. Huh? So. Okay, are you there? Maria Bruegel? How do you pronounce your last name?
It is Bruegel, yes.
Bruegel. Where are you at?
Digesting.
What country are you in? Let's start with that.
Oh, okay. UK.
Okay, cool. What are you digesting? Your own team or what I'm blathering about?
A bit of both, to be honest.
Okay, let's start with the blather.
No, I think just kind of sense making. I'm not a team coach, but being an L&D, we do get requests to support with some dynamic stuff. So this is all really helpful as an additional sort of language and tools and stuff. But yeah, from my own team, I think we have a lot of cohesion, but sort of the agitation element, I think right now is a change in the broader team structure. We've got a temporary leader, a new leader is being recruited. So I'm treating that sort of change as potential agitation.
Yes, I would.
How we work together to still keep going and do what we need to do, and remain cohesive. And I think we're doing well in that respect.
Yeah, I think the question is, how do you prepare as a team to receive a new leader? That would be kind.
Right, yeah.
That would create more cohesion.
Yeah, great question.
So instead of just focusing on the operational tasks you have to think about, how do we actually welcome a new leader? How do we create a cooperation contract between the new leader and the members? So what you have to do is you have to educate your leader this is what we need from leaders to work well. And the leader has to say in their cooperation contract, this is what I need from members to be able to lead. You get the leader you deserve, but if you contract well, then you have more chance of being effective and meaningfully chaotic. So that might be an interesting discussion to have.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. Really great point.
Oh, you're very welcome. Anybody else? Any questions? Things in your own business that you're interested in? Tehila Garti. Where are you?
Hello, hello.
Hello, where are you from?
I'm from Israel.
Oh,
Just
fantastic.
a
Hello.
peaceful country.
No.
No drama at all. Yeah, for me, I feel a little slow here. I don't work with teams. I'm really curious about that field. And I didn't understand. I understand the intrigues.
Yes.
And the other two, it took me time to process what you said. So I'm trying to listen and to understand slowly.
Okay, so pressure. Pressure on a team is, for instance, they get new tasks. They have less budget. Their scope and scale is increased. In a nation, war is a form of pressure. So I'm guessing that's understandable.
I can relate. Yeah.
And you can see the protest in Israel also against the war. We can talk about that for a long time, but we won't. But so that's a form of cohesion. You see a cohesive action. Serbia, for instance, everyone went into the streets to protest. In Hungary, there were anti-LGBTQI protests. That's a first in Hungary. You know, this this increasing cohesion because there's pressure.
Right.
Yeah.
So the pressure actually
Pressure is always
creates more
from the-
cohesion?
Yeah, but pressure is
Okay.
outside in.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then
Or inside out. So, for instance, saying I'm going to buy Greenland is a form of pressure on Greenland. You can understand that. Yeah.
thanks.
So, agitation is when either the leader crosses the boundary into the membership. So, for instance, I sometimes have young leaders who say, yeah, but I'm here by chance. Anybody could do it. My door is always open. And I'm going, actually, not a good thing. In the sense that you have to establish your position before. You need to create structure before relationship when you take over leadership. And if you just say anyone can, it could be anyone, you're lax in your leadership, then you don't establish the structure of your leadership.
Got it.
It's, I don't know, do you ever watch The Dog Whisperer? By any chance, does anyone know that program, The Dog Whisperer? No, it's a guy called Cesar Millan, and he became really famous because he says, I don't train dogs, I train the owners.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And one of the things he says is, when you come home, your dog gets really excited and he jumps on you. People who don't do structure before relationship, they get down on their knees and they say, oh, doggy, I've missed you so much. And Cesar Millan says, in the world of the dog, you then become a dog and you have no authority anymore. So he teaches people, this is the Dog Whisperer, to keep your position before you do relationship. Mm-hmm. And actually, I do the same thing in teams. You need structure. The structure needs to be clear before you create a relationship, because else you have no idea what you're relating to.
Clear. Thank you.
Is that clear enough?
It is very helpful. Thanks.
Okay, cool. What do you do, Tehila? Are you an individual coach?
Yeah, one-on-one executive coaching a lot, but
Okay.
I am so curious about, I want
Team coaching.
to see if maybe team coaching is my next thing. I don't know.
It's a completely different thing.
I starting to
yeah.
Understand that.
Yeah. In team coaching, your client is the team, not the individuals in the team. So you need a systemic language to be able to do it. This is what I'm teaching you now. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions about your own group or team or Agatha?
I actually don't have any questions.
Oh, where are you at?
I'm based in Poland.
Where in Poland?
In Poznań.
Oh, right. I'm going to be there tomorrow.
Oh, really? Oh, nice.
I teach spotkanie.
Oh, spotkanie. Okay, I know the group. Oh, wow. The world is small. But yeah, but I work as a team coach, and just to refer to your question about questions, systemic perspective is well known to me. What I like about explaining the definition of boundaries is that it gives us this language we can communicate, and it depersonalizes the discussion. We just step out of the individual lenses and think about what's happening in the group. So it's like giving the chance to be neutral, more neutral, right, than in emotions and closed into the individual or intra thinking, right? So
yeah, when I do team coaching, I try to make it as normal, understandable as possible. So I rarely make things really personal.
Yeah.
Because people have to understand that whoever would be in the team, if the purpose isn't clear and the structure is rotten, then these dynamics will exist. So even if you replace everyone and put new people in the team, the dynamics will be there. Yeah, if the structure, if the purpose isn't clear and the structure isn't very good. Yeah, okay, cool. Nathalie, est-ce que tu as des questions? Questions, please. 12 points from France. Yes.
Well, yes. But personally, I'm a new coach. I don't have a lot of experience. I've been sales and coach manager for 25 years abroad, for Scandinavian groups, but I don't have any really question because I don't have experience, but I'm very glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm really glad you're here too. But you've led groups.
Yes. Yeah. Before to be coach, I was managing groups. Yes.
Fantastic. Good. That will help you greatly. So,
Yes. Thanks.
Julia, you have a question, and then we'll move on.
Yeah, you really said that you will address it later, but like we had in our leadership team, I'm a beginner's teacher, team coach. Okay, I'm a coach, and I'm also in team coaching. And I see that I went through training, and I see that your training is a little bit like different. Everybody is different. I'm learning a lot. I appreciate it. Like in our team, we had a person who has a tendency to gossiping. And finally, it was so disruptive that the person was moved out of leadership, but still in the team. And we still have this gossiping. And I'm really like, I'm trying to understand, like, still trying to keep the person, how to address the gossip.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of people try to address that in a very relational way. So they do it in a one-on-one relationship. I actually think it's really important that you create a team constitution. So it's a structural intervention. So you have to agree rules of engagement. What are you going to do? Because gossip is often an indication that something is wrong, at least for that person. So the better dialogue is to figure out, this person is carrying something for the team. So what is going on in the team that we allow this person to do this? And what is it that they're signaling really about what might not be working in the team? That's the vision of a team coach. If you were an individual coach, you might talk to this person one-on-one and figure out what in their past is causing them to have ongoing complaints without resolving them. That's a different intervention. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm a great believer in structuring things, making things institutional before you start conversations at the one-on-one level. Okay. Still interesting, still okay. Are we still in it? So up till now, what we know is you need a direction, you need a structure. The structure has to be, the direction has to be clear. The structure has to be as simple as possible. There needs to be balance between open and closed. And we know that every team has dynamics, but the trick is to balance the dynamics with the cohesion. That's where we're at. Yeah. If you don't do any of these things, you go from meaningful chaos into meaningless or dysfunctional chaos. Yeah. A little chaos is good because chaos breeds innovation. Discontent also breeds innovation. I actually like complaints, Julia, because sometimes people say, how do you recruit the members of your team? And I say, well, sometimes I take the person who disagrees with me most because I know that will stimulate me most as a leader. And yeah, and discontent breeds innovation. I worked with a car leasing company and they hired me for leadership team coaching because they were losing their position in the market. And when we talked a bit further, they were losing their position in the market because it took them 24 hours to create contracts for car leases. And they're, 48 hours. And their competitors all had 24-hour contracting. And so discontent breeds innovation was the guideline. So I brought them all together and I said, so what is your purpose? What do you want to do? And they say, well, we also want to do 24-hour contracting. And I said, what would happen if you could do contracts in 2 hours? So let's say your purpose is to contract everything in 2 hours. How would you change your purpose and your structure to enable that? That's team coaching. Yeah. And so we talked about the disruption that would bring and how important it was for the leaders then to speak in one voice, well, et cetera, et cetera. So how do you create cohesion in change? Yeah. I love my job. There you go. Yeah, you have a question, I think.
I want to ask you about good chaos. Oh, sorry.
Yep. Go ahead.
When you're saying meaningful chaos or good chaos, how does that look like? I mean, how do you know that chaos is a good one, and if it brings innovation or other positive things?
I think for me, you can have disruption as long as you maintain dialogue. Yeah.
May I ask a question?
Last question before we continue. Sorry, folks. Manfred also has a question. Go for it, Inga. You first.
How do you deal with narcissism in the team?
Well, it's funny. I am a startup coach for the European Union, and startups, as you probably know, you need a great deal of narcissism to believe that you're doing something new in the market. So a lot of the leaders that I coach are actually functioning narcissists, functioning in the sense that they have the idea and they've collected people around them. I was working for one fintech. I'm answering your question in a roundabout way, Inga. I was working for a fintech startup, and there was a narcissistic leader, and obviously he had recruited 5 other narcissistic leaders around him to manage this company. And we started team coaching, and because he did realize that he wasn't going to be able to scale the business purely based on his narcissism, because you need other people to scale a business. If you think you can do it alone, which narcissists usually do, then probably the scaling isn't going to be very successful. So we started team coaching, and I said the central question is, what can you do together you can't do alone? You will be recruited on the basis of your teaming capacity, not on the basis of your discipline capacity. And the next day, 3 out of the 6 people left. Inga, that's how I deal with it. Yeah, narcissism is great at the start because you really need to have that belief that you are the only one who can do this. But to create a company that's bigger, you need to balance it out with different personality types.
Yeah, that's a great approach.
We were able to recruit people who actually might not have been, perfection in their discipline, but they were fantastic team people, and together they created something great. Yeah. Manfred, last question, and Natalie will come back to you later. I just want to move to competencies.
Sorry, maybe you already touched on this, but I missed it. Cohesion, a cohesive team.
Yeah.
What would you say are some of the indicators?
How do you measure it?
Yeah, how do you measure that the team is cohesive?
Yeah, I created a questionnaire for that, but some of the indicators are that people actually like being together and working together, and that they feel that they're interdependent, that they actually need each other to do the work. that they feel they're missed if they're not there. Yeah, there's a lot of other indicators, but that's a different. Just PM me, Manfred. We can talk further about that. Yeah, but it's a really good question. Yeah. Okay, are you ready for the? So you need cohesion to balance out the dynamics, but what do you need to create cohesion? Are we ready for that next step? And then we'll kind of, let's see, where am I at? I can share. I'm also realizing I didn't take a break, but now. Share. So, let me say something else first. I'll say two things. One is actually cohesion and cooperation is one of the things in psychology we've done the most research on. Because after World War II, there was a huge push to create research on how can we create nations that will work together. And some of you may know this, there's a fantastic book by a guy called Robert Axelrod, Axelrod, called The Evolution of Cooperation. If you're interested in it, I would read it. So it's a very, very well researched area, how to create cohesion. And actually, from the research, the thing they created from that research is the prisoner's dilemma. A lot of you know that game, probably. Do you know the prisoner's dilemma? Yeah, it comes from that bit of research around, can we create cooperation without a centralized authority? That's where it originally comes from, that research. And as those of you know, do you know the rules of cooperation, to maintain cooperation based on the prisoner's dilemma? No. So Axelrod and co. repeated the research some years ago, but they had access now to virtual reality. So they did the prisoner's dilemma with 200,000 people at the same time. Very interesting. And they found that there was one strategy that would create the most cooperation and cohesion in teams. And what they said was not surprising, but very difficult to do in teams. So they said rule number one is always start from a cooperative position in a team. So the assumption that the others will cooperate. Rule number two, they said the most successful strategy, called tit for tat. Rule number two is, as soon as someone steps out of cooperation, you have to withdraw your cooperation as well. I used to negotiate with the unions for KLM. I used to work for KLM. And when I was very, very young, I learned so much about this, because there's I think in general, women tend to keep on cooperating even if the other party doesn't. Rule number three is, as soon as someone steps back into cooperation, you step back as well into cooperation. but it only works with rule number 4, which is that you're absolutely explicit about what you're doing and why. And the other condition is forgiveness. And again, there's a gender bias here because women are very good at forgiveness. Men are usually not as good as women at forgiveness. This is research. I'm not talking opinion. This is the research. So we know, Manfred, how
sorry.
to...
Yeah, I thought that maybe even Monkey could do that. The question, do you think, but probably it seems really difficult to organize, that maybe the track make a pickup of one palette of this Luftkalyata from Koliba? I'm not sure that it's easy to organize.
Are you talking
Anyway,
to
we
us?
would like to make a trial before ordering a full truckload. Could you please double check with?
I think she's not talking to us. So, Manfred, these are the rules, out of this repeated cooperation thing. How do you create cohesion? You start with a cohesive stance, a cooperative stance. As soon as someone moves out, you retaliate immediately. If they step back in, you have to forgive immediately and start cooperating again. But you have to tell people why you're moving in and out. If you don't tell people explicitly, nobody learns anything about cooperation. I think in teams that's what often goes wrong. People move in and out of cooperation, but they don't tell each other why they're doing that. Yeah. And if you don't tell each other, there's no capacity for collective learning. Okay, any questions about this? It makes sense, no? But anyone who's tried to do this in their personal relationships knows how difficult this is. Yeah. So who's really good at cooperation, starting from a position of cooperation? You can raise your hand. Are you really good at that? Yeah. Hey, Georgie. At last I can see you. Here you go.
I think yes, but according to all the investigations, it's like Wiley was doing 2021, 99% of people, they said that they are good team members. And that's kind of counterintuitive to what we, so my opinion is not really
well
objective.
Yeah, well, you can measure cooperation in leadership teams by the amount of sacrifice one leader is willing to do for another. So for instance, one leader has too few people that another leader then says, you can borrow mine for a while. That's a cooperative stance. You don't see that very often. If one leader says, I actually made a profit this year, and they say, and another leader says, we made a loss, and that they decide together how to divide the profit and loss, that's a cooperative stance in leadership. High cohesion. You don't see it very often. Yeah. My opinion, and this is opinion, not research, about cooperation within leadership teams is it's not very good. The level of cooperation in leadership teams. And so, we have a lot of work to do, basically. Yeah.
There's a statement that it says the absent are safe with us. In other words, when you are in a team and we're discussing someone who is not in the meeting,
that's gossip.
They should feel safe.
That's intrigue. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a red dynamic. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, how many of you are really good at stepping out of cooperation when somebody else steps out? So, immediate retaliation. Who's really good at that? Elma is. I can see that. Cool. Tahir. Yeah. Who's very good at forgiveness? And I mean forgiveness, letting go, without what we call stamps, so that you don't save up stamps that you 2 years later you say, yes, but when you did. So you have to let go without stamps, we say. Yeah. Yeah. It's one of the things we really can add value to teams as team coaches by teaching people how to cooperate. And really, the rules are very simple and they're well proven. You know, they're well researched, well proven. And it's one of the basic things, you know, in teams. If you can't partner, you can't really be a good team member. So Kathleen is looking up, going, "Am I a good partner?" Are you a good partner, Kathleen?
Yes. The stepping out, that's probably not my strength. So I probably cooperate longer than I should.
Yeah, and that means in TA terms, you would start rescuing, and rescuing is one of the best ways to get into psychological games.
Probably.
It's most money in organizations. Okay. So I'm going to give you a little bit of time to talk together. Just a couple minutes, maybe 10 minutes this time, to talk together about, if you read this as the competencies to cooperate well, where do you think you're good and where do you think you need to develop yourself? So I'm going to open the rooms. Here you go. Where are you good at cooperation and where do you think you need to develop? Good question. It sounds like a good question. Nita, are you joining us from India?
Yes, I am.
Oh, fantastic.
And I'm sorry I missed 1 hour of it or so. I sort of misread the time as usual. So I missed a lot of it. But yeah.
Working internationally has its challenges.
Yeah.
Yeah. Welcome anyway. So
and Sari, I'm about to leave, like, you know, so like, will you send like the whatever I will miss, because it's an amazing workshop. I like it so much.
Oh, thank you very much. You can always find me. You can find me everywhere. Unfortunately, that's the price of doing this work. But yeah, I was So I looked up my real measure of cohesion. The real test of a group's cohesion is the ability to do a measurable amount of work against the opposition. Now you know. Okay, what came out for you of the this very short, small discussions about how good or bad you are at cooperation? Sudeep, sir.
Yeah. I'll just speak just 1 second.
Did you manage?
I'm there. I'm just trying to get onto the screen. Yeah.
We can see you. We can hear you. So are you very good at cooperation, Sudeep?
I think I am still learning and improving. I'll put it that way. So I rather saying a clear yes or no.
Okay.
I did discuss with my co-coaches on what works for me or where I'm probably doing better. I just feel, and I'll urge my co-speakers also if they can chip in this. I just feel I'm good when I try and focus more on outcome rather than the team dynamics.
Then on relationship.
Yeah. So the moment, because many times the challenge I face is the team boundaries are not very permeable. People move a lot, at least in large organizations. So rather than trying to get them together as a team to collaborate or me collaborating with them, I find it easy to see that collaboration work on where we identify an objective and let people identify how that objective plays out for them.
Yeah. Okay. And then what's missing for me in that is that you also need a discussion about how are we going to work together to get this done. That's what would create cohesion. We call it a cooperation contract.
Absolutely. I think you kind of voiced what I was trying to convey. Thank you.
Fantastic. Focusing on task more than relationship works very well in groups. So, and I'm not saying teams are better than groups. Groups are really great. In Holland, we say for every nail, a different hammer. So groups work really well if you have to do standard operating procedures and you're focused on volume. You need a team when you do more innovative work or process improvement work, because you need everyone for that. And the more you move from group to team, the more you have to focus as well on the relationship between people as a leader. So if you're in a purely manufacturing environment where it's really about volume and you can get away with being a group, then only being task focused is actually quite effective as a leader. Yeah. Okay. Anything else came out of the discussions? Things you were interested in or not interested in at all? We're nearing the end of our time as well. It's a hot day here. We've been talking for 2 hours, so.
So may I share what came up for me?
Yes, please, Nita.
So I looked at it from two perspectives. One is my personal perspective, and next was my role in a team or an organization. I just realized that I overly cooperate. I cooperate too much. And that actually stems from my please others drive, TA driver.
Hello.
I think I've lost you.
Hello? Oh, we're back. We're back.
I'm so sorry. I'll try and make it really short. I realized that
it's not you, it's the internet.
Yeah, I realized that I cooperate too much because I have a very clear please others driver in TA language, in TA parlance, and that's not good. I tend then, that takes me to a breaking point where I'm more passive aggressive than assertive. So that's something that I need to work on. And that plays out in my interactions with my team as well. Right.
Okay. So what are you going to do differently?
That's a good question, Sari.
Give me a great answer. Go on.
I don't have an answer at this point in time, but I'm trying to be a lot more assertive than passive aggressive. I think I'm learning to create my boundaries, and I know that's good in a team as well. So this is from a personal perspective.
Okay, the smallest thing you can do that's the most effective if you have a please other rescuing tendency, Nita.
Mm-hmm.
The best thing you can do is to learn how to contract. And it is as simple as if someone in your team says, it's cold here, and you immediately get up to close the window, that's a please others. Okay? If someone in your team says, it's cold here, and you say the short sentence in between, what would you like me to do?
Mm-hmm.
That's a contract. And then you're out of the rescuing please other driver.
Interesting.
So all you have to learn is this really short sentence.
Yeah.
Someone in your team goes like this, ongoing complaint, and your technical thing you have to learn is to contract, to say, I understand what you're saying. What are you going to do? What do you want me to do? That's all. It's nothing to do with becoming more assertive, or it's learning how to contract. Will get you out of that pattern.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
It's so simple, but it's so difficult to do.
Yeah, it's so difficult to do, but it's worth trying, right? I mean, it's better for our mental stability and our mental health. So, yeah.
Yeah. And it's it's one sentence. Make the difference in the quality of your life. There you go.
Thank you.
Anything else? Helle, how are we doing?
Great. I'm really so happy to have joined your session. It's so interesting. So in the group we shared some thoughts. So what I shared was that the step of letting the other person know that I am now stop doing something, that would be very difficult. I don't ever think I've done it. And so we discussed it, and there was a group member who then said, so we talked about, like, if it were with kids, that might be easier. And we talked about authenticity. Like, if there was authenticity, it might be easier. Whereas if there's not, the other party might think that you are taking leadership, or you are telling them off, or like it might escalate a conflict. And then that very same person also said it might also help to communicate the why, like why, the reason why I then would stop doing something, for instance. And that I thought that was very clever and useful as well. So I'm putting myself that challenge that next time I encounter something, I would try to communicate to that other person, like try it out to see if I would be able to enhance the cohesion by doing that.
Yeah, the trick is to say it without heat, Helle.
Yeah.
No heat. So to say it as a statement and not as an accusation.
Right. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. So you want to go on vacation with someone, and you bring, shall we go there? No. Shall we go there? No. Shall we go there? Nah. You go, well, I'd really like to go on vacation with you. The three things I've brought don't please you. So I'm guessing that you have less of an energy around that. So I'm not going to propose more vacations.
Yeah. Thank you.
I'm just.
And what you say, put it as a statement and not use heat? Or
no heat. Yeah.
No heat.
I used to, for my sins, I lived in Riyadh in Saudi Arabia for a while. The only useful thing I learned there is never drink your tea hot. Is one of the sayings I learned. And what they mean is don't fight if you are engaged. We say in TA, in script behavior. Yeah.
Thank you. That's very inspiring.
No, I want to hear if you've done it or not. That would be great. That would be inspiring. Me saying
no.
So inspiring. Okay, folks, we're nearing the end of our time, and we've been talking about how to move from dysfunctional chaos into meaningful chaos. And what I said in teams, what's really important is set a purpose so that the direction is clear, create a simple structure, create a structure that is open or closed enough to serve the purpose. balance the dynamics with the cohesion, make sure that people feel that they're part of something bigger to balance out the normal dynamics in a team. And lastly, teach people the rules of cooperation. And if you do all of those things, your chances of staying in meaningful chaos are greater, because you need chaos to create innovation. And that was it, really. I hope you enjoyed this, and that you take something with it for your own practice. So, does anyone want to say any last famous words? Good, bad, ugly? Good, bad, ugly? Good? Fantastic. Have a great day, everybody, and I wish you a lot of meaningful chaos in your life.
Thank you, Sari.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you. Bye-bye. Nice meeting all of you. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.